Hello, and welcome to our next episode of Return on Investment Stories with Muse College Consulting. I'm so excited to be able to talk with my friend Melanie today. And so, before we jump in, first of all, welcome, Melanie. Hi.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah, yes. So, I always like to get started on these episodes by just having you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, and if you want to share how we know each other.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tracy. This is such a lovely uh like work that you're doing and I just really support it. So thank you for this opportunity. But I'm Melanie Queponds. I know Tracy because of the theater school at DePaul University in Chicago. Got my MFA there in 2020 in directing. And Tracy, I don't know if I've actually told you this, but truly, like I always think of you as like the reason, like one of the main reasons I'm at DePaul. I was at DePaul because I remember it was just like a random morning while I was at UC Riverside. I was just like eating breakfast at like the diner that they had on campus. And I remember I saw your email. It was like, hey, are you still interested? I was like, still interested. And I looked and I noticed you had emailed both of my email addresses. And somehow the original email to like, hey, you're invited to audition for the theater school was like sent to my spam. So the only reason that I knew that I was even invited to interview and that I got an interview was because you had reached out and said, "Hey, I haven't heard back." So I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, thank you, Tracy, because I
Oh.
know, who knows what would have happened if I had never checked my spam, never gotten your email. So, yeah, so I really credit you for that path
Oh.
that I got to take. Yeah, and so now I'm directing. I'm teaching as well, dramaturging. I'm also the resident director and dramaturg of Breath of Fire Latina Theater Ensemble in Santa Ana, California. But just moved to Los Angeles. Have been living in Riverside County, my hometown, for the past few years since graduating from TTS with my MFA. And yeah, excited to do the LA thing and expand into film and television, but still do theater and still teach. And yeah, it's just been a whirlwind, but we're here and I'm excited.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thanks for sharing that story about, me reaching out to you and how fun to know, right? See, persistence is always good from the admission side as well, because it would have been so sad if we had never been able to cross paths. And so it's such a fun story. But so as we can already hear, you're such a Renaissance human, right? You're doing all the things and have really certainly been hitting the ground since you graduated from your MFA. But, let's start. So I think a lot of the people who may be watching these episodes are at the beginning of their journey and considering, whether they should embark on a education in performing arts. It could also be their parents or supporters, family, friends. So let's start at the top and just tell us a little bit. You briefly mentioned your experience at the theater school, but tell me about, rewind back when you were a high school student getting ready to apply to college, and talk about what that process was like for you, where you went, what you ended up studying, anything you want to share about your journey from back then.
Yes. Yeah, I actually kind of had a fun college experience in that in high school, I was like finding myself as many high schoolers do, and I found drama club at like 16, and I was like, I love this so much. Before that, I had been doing like ballet and like kind of studio dance, and then I got into color guard for like a year and a half. But then I had always loved like theater. Like I remember at like the Scholastic Book Fair in like second grade, I saw like the like kid versions of like Macbeth and I think Romeo and Juliet. And I was like, I need this. Um, and then Wicked, I bought like I have the novel of Wicked from like 2005, and I shouldn't have been reading that at like 11, but I was like, oh, it's a musical. I must read this. So I always like was drawn to theater without having been introduced to it really until I was in my teens and through high school really. Because yeah, I feel like my first professional theater production I ever saw was in college.
Hmm.
But in high school, I was like, oh, I love this. So I'm like, I want to be a teacher. I'm going to be a drama teacher. So I finished out high school with that plan of like, I'm going to be a drama teacher, which probably means also an English teacher. Just trying to follow in the footsteps of my amazing high school teacher, Stephanie Fomby, who we still keep in contact. We texted the other day, actually. And I was like, this is it. Like, I'm good with with this plan. But even in college, I was like, well, should I major in theater? And part of that came from just fear of like, is this stable? Is this, even though knowing like I wanted really to teach, I still was worried about like stability. And of course, my family was too, which is very normal and very valid in that, it's a risk in any way. Um, but in college, I just kept coming back to theater. So I just kept taking the classes. I finally majored in it. I started college at the University of San Diego. I was there for a year. At the end of my first year, they let me know that financial aid had changed. My financial aid had changed. And they said, sorry, we can't give you this loan. And with that, my family couldn't afford it. I couldn't do it. It was a private Catholic university, beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful campus. Met really lovely people there, but I only was there for a year because I couldn't afford it after that. I went back home to my hometown in Menifee, and I said, okay, I'm going to go to community college. So I went to Riverside City College then for my second year. And during that second year, I think pretty much immediately, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to UC Riverside because it was the nearest, basically nearest university to my hometown. I could commute. And I didn't put too much thought into it. I was just like, I know this is what I'm going to do. And I went in majoring in theater, and I was ready to, also double major in English. So I did do that at UCR. But through my time at UCR and still thinking, okay, I'm going to be a drama teacher, I met this mentor, Dr. Tiffany Ana Lopez. And, through our talks, she was like, well, if you're going to be a drama teacher, you should learn how to direct. I'm like, oh, you're right. And she's like, here's this ensemble of students that I've created, where you can like direct play readings and, do whatever you want to do in terms of like producing and directing. And I was like, great. And I basically took that over for that year, my fourth year in college. I stayed a fifth year because of that double major. So I made more time, and I kind of split it up as well so that I could kind of, I wasn't super, I would take a lot of classes in a quarter, but I also kind of spread it out so that I could have like a full fifth year, and just use that time, and also kind of give away the group so that it could continue. And it did continue for a few years after that, the Latinx play project at UC Riverside. And um, through that time, I met up with my mentor again, and she was like, are you thinking about grad school? And I said, I don't even know what that means, really. Like, I have no like concept of what that is. I'm the first in my family to go to college. So, I was kind of trotting through college as much as I could, with a lot of support from like the resources there. And I was in the honors program, and they gave me a lot of support. But my mentor mentioning grad school was like, you should think about these schools. And so she gave me names. She mentioned DePaul and Lisa Portes. And I was like, okay. And I just went for it without really thinking too much about it, just thinking, yeah, I'll apply for this idea of like continuing to go to school after my fifth year of college. Um, so I kind of did it on a whim. And then through that, and making sure I was like applying to theater directing, like I knew after that fourth year for sure, I was like, I love directing. I love working with actors. I love acting as well, but I feel like I really found kind of my voice with directing. Um, so then I applied, I got into two schools, and then I chose the theater school at DePaul for many, many reasons. But yeah, I had a fun college experience in that, like I moved a lot of places. I met a lot of really great people, but it was all looking back now, it's like, wow, it was really just everything kind of aligned in the perfect way, so that I could, move into grad school and then become a professional.
Mhm.
Um, in this way. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And then this isn't my first time hearing all of that from you. So thank you for sharing that. And it's so interesting. The things I want to really highlight from what you've shared too is that you emphasized multiple times the impact of the mentors that you had in your life during your college, and how helped you transition into graduate school. And I just really appreciate hearing that because, especially, I am also a first generation college student, and I look back and I'm so grateful for the people who were there as sort of the guiding lights along the way, because I wouldn't be where I am today without having those people in my life. And it's just really important to emphasize, I think, to students and supporters that mentors are huge, and you don't necessarily know when they're going to come in and out of your lives, or where you're going to find them, but it's very special to hear that. So thanks for it's a shout out to your mentors and mine as well, I guess, in this moment for that. And especially again
Yeah.
with grad school, right? Like it's easier, I think, as a first gen student in some ways to know like college is the thing and a lot of people do it and there's a lot of systems in place to support that. But grad school is a
Mhm.
whole crazy different world, right? Especially with theater.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to your mentors for sending them our way. So when I
Thank you.
yeah, of course, of course. So in hearing all of that, you just went like boom, 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 and also to Melanie, a huge compliment to your persistence too, right? Because it's not easy to start college as a first gen student and then have to refigure out where to go. And so going from a 4 year to a community college back to a 4 year, and that's just a lot to navigate. So I hope you pat yourself on the back, every once in a while for doing all of that because it's big.
Thank you.
So yeah,
Thank
of course.
you.
Of course. So you found your, performing arts through your love and exposure in high school and then into college. So what would you say, do you have big takeaways or I guess things you're grateful you learned along the way that continue to give you confidence in pursuing the performing arts while in undergrad and then into graduate school?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, you just nailed, right on the head of mentorship. That I think that was the biggest thing for me as, this young person kind of just figuring things out like any young person. But uh, having people who believed in me first before I could believe in myself, and knowing that this is something that is possible for someone like me. I find that I keep coming back to my mentors, seeing them as like, oh, this is who I can see myself as now, of like in a smaller scale, but I find myself like mentoring my students and continuing those relationships and talking them through some of their journey, giving them encouragement as like they continue through education and then into, professionalism. Um and just knowing how much it means to see someone like yourself, like your family, doing the thing that you want to do that felt so out of reach. And also in a different way, because I think when I, starting theater and knowing I wanted to be a drama teacher, I always kept that to like high school. Um, when I first started, and then seeing my professors and seeing my mentor, like very proud Chicana in like a university like UC, she taught there for 30 years, like she has her PhD. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a totally different way of pursuing theater, pursuing this work, in such a different way, that I was like, oh, it's not just, you know, this way. Not to say that high school drama isn't, big enough, but it's just a different way of pursuing, I think, this work. Um, and so through her and through my various mentors, it's like, oh yeah, this is possible for me and what I want to do. And I can get training, and I can invest in myself and my education. Um, even though this is the first time anyone in my family has ever done this. Um, yeah. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, of like how important mentorship is, and that now I can give back in my little ways, just through conversations or um one of my I think of him as like someone I grew up with, but it makes sense because he was 13 and I was 17. But we grew up together. Um and we went to church together. That's how we met, was church. He ended up at the same high school that I went to, and he also did drama. And he started writing in high school. He started writing like musicals with his dear friend Eliza. I'll just say their names: Mario Vega and Eliza Vidar. and I started writing musicals in high school. And I went to see, he just finished his MFA at UCLA for playwriting, and I went to see his play. And he introduced me to one of his like UCLA professors. He's like, "Oh, this was my first mentor," and I'm like, "Oh
Oh.
my God!" Like it didn't hit me until then that I was like, "Wow, that makes sense." Yes, yeah, we went to like Chipotle and like we talked about playwriting when he was in high school and I was at UCR, and like that's like I didn't realize how much that would all of those little conversations, things that I feel like, oh, I just want to be helpful, I just want to support, like that becomes mentorship.
Mhm.
Um, and that has been such a beautiful part of, yeah, just growing up and like, becoming a professional and being like, oh yeah, I see you guys were me, 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And here we are. So, it's possible. So it's been great
Yeah.
to be that example now when I had those examples.
Yeah, I love that so much. And well, that's a really good segue into, so what are you doing professionally now, right? You gave sort of a sneak peek, but tell us more about what you've been doing since you graduated.
Yes. So I graduated with my MFA in 2020, which was a wild time to graduate into, having your MFA in theater directing. But, at the same time, not that I'm grateful for the pandemic, but I'm grateful for the opportunities that, I had at that time, because even though it felt like, a really dark time for like, I did lose like a teaching job that I would have had in Chicago, because everything had shut down in person wise. But kind of because of the pandemic, I found dramaturgy, where a lot of people were doing new play readings and, play development, all online, all over Zoom. That's, I think, where I really found my footing with dramaturgy and new play development. And I had like a hint of that in grad school, thanks to Lisa and Damon having a specifically like a new play development class where
Mhm.
for one quarter you are, you reach out to a playwright, the directors reach out to a playwright and ask, do you want to be part of this? And we get actors for them. And we develop their play for 10 weeks for a quarter. And I had the opportunity to take that class in my final quarter of grad school, which was all online. So, through that, I was like, oh, this is okay. This is what new play development is. I had a little taste of that in college, but I really didn't know sort of the protocol, or, that there are like techniques to like really make it effective.
Mhm.
So I found that in grad school and then through the pandemic, where, I was just working with playwrights one on one, or doing readings with them. And that was where I really found dramaturgy. So since then, really, I've been not only directing, but also dramaturging. I actually right now have the chance to dramaturg like an actual production, which is still, it's a new play. And so we just did the workshop week last week, but I'm excited for that opportunity now. And I think, yeah, going into grad school, I didn't know that this would be something that's possible for me, but it is thanks to my training and all of my experience that I can, come to the table as a dramaturg, and say, hey, these are my thoughts. And I think the overlap with directing and dramaturgy is so, there's so much that does overlap that I feel like it felt natural. And I love new play development and I love playwrights. So through working with playwrights, I've now been writing myself. So I'm facilitating and leading a writing workshop through Breath of Fire. Um, and through that, I've also been writing my own work now. So working on, scenes and short films and plays, but um, yeah, so I think I didn't really, I think that's been sort of markers of my journey of like different ways of finding my voice. And
Mhm.
so, it's just been different ways of like, oh, I really feel like I found my voice with directing and like storytelling. I loved acting, but then, then I found dramaturgy and it's like, oh, this is a different way that I can, help shape story and just like support writers. And then realizing, oh, I think I could be a writer too. I do love writing. I just never, uh, even in college, I had like, oh, I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer. Like I love to interpret. And that was like my thing. I guess kind of like actors were like, I'm not a dancer, I'm a mover. That was my thing of like, I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer. But then yeah, I was like, wait, I do love writing because I love story. I love working with these people that like are making the story, and so why can't I do that as well? So yeah, finally kind of embracing my writing and hoping to expand it to film and television, now being moved to LA, and have some short films, being kind of developed right now so that I can hopefully produce and direct it. So yeah, just moving into that space, but still teaching. So that has been my constant through since 2023. Which wow, that's only like 2 years ago, but I've been teaching pretty much nonstop since January 2023, up until now in various forms at a community college, as the chair, and then guest directing at different universities. I've been guest directing for my alma mater, UC Riverside, and I'll be back there again next year for 2 shows. So that's been a really kind of full circle moment as well, of like being able to teach and mentor where I was a student and where I feel like I really, um, grew up and found that first original voice of mine to say, yeah, I'm an artist. This is what I do.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Well, I love that too, because now going back to UC Riverside and guest directing, when your mentor there was the one who sort of, nudged you along towards directing. I love that full circle as well. That's amazing. So fun.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that, because of these, and that's been sort of a big takeaway too, is like all these relationships that I didn't know,
Mhm.
it's not like I was thinking, oh, this is going to take me, in 10 years, they're going to give me a job. It wasn't that. It was just, making relationships, finding people that I aligned with and that our missions are just that we vibed. And that has been what really has carried me through, and given me a lot of opportunities, because it it really does matter how people just speak about you in a room, that they say, hey, I can't do this gig, but here's Melanie, like that. Like I am so grateful for that the community that, through UCR, through TTS, through everyone, this support system that I have. And they've been really the ones, and I try to give back as much as I can, but I feel like so lucky that has been my experience, is those relationships, and that network and that community has just, um it just gives so much. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's truly, I know you're very humble, but it's also very much a testament to who you are and the amazing work that you do. And, you have built a reputation for yourself that just, it allows for you to continue to get work, and for your community and in your network to continue to promote you and want to work with you and to recommend you. So I just, I hope that you, every once in a while allow yourself to be like, wow, that's amazing. I did that, whether intentionally or not, that is what you leave in your wake. So, congratulations to all of that. And, obviously, Melanie, you are very busy, which is fantastic. And I also think what you've highlighted very well is that, in earning a performing arts degree and being in this world and this profession, is you're not putting yourself in a box, right? There's a continuous opportunities to grow and think about what you can do with the skills that you've learned, and the opportunities that you've had. And I'm really excited to see where your writing takes you. That's really fun that you're doing that and all the other things,
thank
right?
you.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
so fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's new for me to embrace it, and I'm also taking a Meisner acting class right now. So it's, I'm like, I'm trying to jump into everything I can, and still, because there's so much still to learn and to remember and to refresh. And um,
It's
yeah,
amazing. You're at continuing education and then you're not bored. So
exactly.
yeah.
That's huge.
That's amazing. So I guess my next question, what would you say, these are called return on investment stories. So what would you say so far up until this point, the biggest return on investment has been in following this pathway and your passion and love for this world?
Yeah, I think I've thought about that a lot, because when I first toured DePaul, and I was choosing between DePaul and another school that was a great school and a great program, and smaller school. It would have been a cohort of two for the whole 3 years versus DePaul's like six, and kind of cycling out every 2 years. Still 3-year program. I was just kind of juggling, this idea of where will I go? Uh, and I remember I spoke to my friend's wife, and she was like, when I went to grad school, I realized this was just an investment in myself, and like, and I deserve and I earn to like invest in myself and my work and my training and my craft. And that really made me choose. I mean, so many things, but that kind of reframed for me, because I was thinking, oh, well, this other school more affordable. There were just different things that I was kind of juggling, um, and that really turned the tide for me of thinking of education as an investment in myself and
Mhm.
that choice in myself. Uh, but also not just myself, that it's a bigger thing, especially now seeing back. It's like, well, it's not just an investment in like me and my craft, but also like my community, and the fact that there aren't a ton of trained Latino directors out there, and that can be for many many reasons. And but the fact that I had that opportunity to have that training, to have the masters. I think it's still true now. I think in the US, only 2% of Latinas hold master's degrees. And I think it's even less for PhDs and JDs and MDs. But just that alone, I was like, wow, this is bigger than me in the end. Um, but knowing that I also could have that training and could invest that time and energy and those resources into myself. Um, so I think that was the biggest reframe. And so I feel like I've gotten so much. I mean, just from like the theater community, the Latino theater community, just the people, and like the continuing. I find that even just in my acting class yesterday, it's people from all walks of life. And in the community college where I taught, like all walks of life, like either like trying to like really pursue acting or just like taking acting for fun. And um, I find that in theater or just our industries of film, TV, theater, performing arts, that people are so willing to just explore and just play and like find out who they are as humans and get to know other people. And like that has been a really big blessing. I think that I can be surrounded by people who constantly want to, I don't want to say be better, because it's not about like, oh, it's not like self-help or anything, but it's just, yeah, just wanting to be like a good human in the world. And I love that those are the kind of people that are drawn to the performing arts, because you have to be open, you have to be empathetic. Like it's just, that's the nature of like this work.
Mhm.
You can't tell stories about other people unless you can see yourself in their shoes, or you relate to them, or you see your dad or your mom or your siblings. Like I think this work, and that's not to say it's easy, because it's
Mhm.
hard, because it is hard work. I mean, just empathy itself can be sadly hard.
Mhm.
It shouldn't be, but it's, I think it's something that uh, it kind of has to be either taught or but I do think it's something that we can learn in terms of just being open. And like, so I love that. I feel like that's been the biggest kind of return on investment for me, is like the community and the people that I get to work with. Um, and the fact that, yeah, I have a master's degree and I can teach and I can like kind of go in between these spaces, both as a professional and an educator, and say like, hey, if I did it, you can too. Like don't doubt that you can be a professional, because I'm here. And give yourself 5 years, do the work and dedicate yourself and be disciplined. But this is, I find, can be a welcoming space. It really can be. So yeah, I think that's been the biggest return for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I just want to echo that I think that and for people who watch multiple episodes of the return on investment stories, like these are good humans that I'm doing interviews with, right? You all are such amazing humans and pursuing different pathways and have great stories that are all so unique from each other. But I think that that is a recurring theme is that it's just a really good community and right, humanity who is empathetic and willing to work hard. And you have to work hard in whatever you do. But if this is your passion, work hard in a field where you're very passionate, right? And it makes it so much more fun. So yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Okay, so I think my last question for you is, thinking about again students who are or at the front end of their journey, getting ready to go down this pathway that may feel a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes. Do you have any advice that you want to give beyond what you've shared with us so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big lesson I learned in grad school, and this is thanks to Damon Kiley, also Lisa Fortes, but there was a moment specifically with Damon where, I like ran to his office. I was running late for a meeting with him. Uh, and I like ran in and I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I kept apologizing. And he like kind of stopped and looked at me and he's like, Melanie, you deserve to be here. And I remember like crying, like
Oh.
immediately, like I was just in tears because yeah, I think he had seen in me just how sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I think it still really moves me because that was a time of my life where even though I had this amazing opportunity to go to TTS to pursue my master's to direct and learn and all these things, I still didn't think that I deserved to be there. And and I didn't even know, like he put words to it when I didn't know that that's what I was going through, of like this anxiety and this um kind of shame of like oh my god, like I don't I'm late, oh, like all these, being really hard on myself.
Mhm.
And it was because I didn't feel that I deserved to be there. Um so I think that was a big takeaway, and I just hope that students can realize that they do deserve to be in these spaces, that they do deserve um to follow their dreams and to follow this path and to be the best person that they can be. And a lot of times that's through art, and that's through, I found it through theater, but maybe you find that in a different way. But um yeah, these students do deserve to follow their dreams, so I hope that they find that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being so open to sharing that and I hope that you continue to remind yourself too that you have earned every place that you have landed, right? And I can just say because I was on the admission side of things, it was a very competitive program for you to get into. And only two students were selected each year and you were one of those two. And so, I mean, continue to give yourself pats on the back and remember that you always deserve to be in the spaces that you're invited into. And for everyone out there, if people try to tell you that's not the truth, then they're not worth working with or for, right? And it's just
Exactly.
we all um, deserve to believe in ourselves and know our value and our worth. And so,
Mm.
so Melanie, I just respect you so much for sharing that and know that we all knew that you were meant to be there. And, and here 5+ years later, being able to come back and talk to you and hear your story and how successful you truly are. And undoubtedly the impact you are making on, people who are younger than you and are in your
Mm.
similar spaces and circles. Like you will hear stories from people years to come. Like, wow, just like the example you gave us with the student or the friend you grew up with. Like that's happening and you don't even know it because you're such an amazing human. So,
Oh,
yeah. So I just want you to know how much I respect you and I'm just grateful that you want to take time out of your crazy busy schedule to talk for this story series. So my big heartfelt thank you. And I cannot wait to continue to follow you in your career and stay in touch. And I think, again, for people who are watching, keep your eye out for Melanie because you're going to keep going and it's going to be fantastic. So thank you for being on
thank you,
this
Tracy.
show with me and wishing you all the best and all the love.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for having me.